I wanted to ask you too about an interesting question. I didn't even remember Vince ever being asked, but Landsberg asked if he could turn back time, would he have purchased WCW? And Vince's response was part of him wishes he never made the deal. And he's sort of indicating that maybe just one company having the entire business wasn't the best thing. Did you ever have conversations like that with Vince about
Yeah,
whether or not that was a positive in the end?
whether or not the purchase of WCW was.
Yes.
Again, I think that the way it was done, what we did purchase was good, and it was good for the company. To have another company out there that's viable, which became TNA, um, that's good. It's good for the talent to have a place to go. It's good for people to be able to go work and have an alternative. Yes, that is important. And at the time, WCW was going away. In spite of, I know Eric wanted to buy it. There were other, suitors allegedly out there. Vince was looking for the library, knew what he wanted to do with the network. So that, that was in play then. And people go, oh, the network didn't come out until 2011, whatever. Guys, the network was in play in the 90s. Vince was looking for that library. Vince wanted that library. That's one thing he did want. Whether he wanted to run another company, I don't think that was ever really his goal. We talked about it. We talked about it in a lot of different ways, but I don't know that was ever the goal, was to have another company. And I think that having a second company or a third company or a fourth company where talent can go and work, and TNA had started by then, and that was the case. And I think that was good for talent to have someplace else to go. And I think that's what he meant by that.
He was also asked by Landsberg about his potential successor. If something were to happen to him, what would be the plan? And Vince sort of indicates it would be a group effort. And he specifically mentions family members Shane, Stephanie, and Triple H as those who might be running things. Was succession a plan that was that something that was discussed in '04 that you recall? I mean, I know obviously it's been discussed a lot in the last 5 years or so, but 20 years ago, were people still talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. Look, those were real discussions that you had to have before you ever went public, because in going public with a board, and you're now a publicly traded company, if I'm owning stock, I want to know what the succession plan is. If it's like the one man show that it is in Vince McMahon, then what happens? He steps off the curb and gets hit by a bus. What happens to the company? And I will go back to, the early 90s, when Jerry Jarrett allegedly, oh my God, he's going to come in and run the company. Never ever the case. Again, I'll keep stating that because that's the truth. Vince looked at it then, if he went to jail, that we were all going to do our jobs and we would run it. It was a group. Everybody was in place. Everybody in their positions were trained so that they would continue to do what they do and run as a group. And same thing with the succession plan. Vince was putting people in places so that they would be in the right place if something were to happen to him, and the company would continue on.
We should talk about how great business is abroad. You guys ran shows the last week of May in Dublin. You actually ran a show in Dublin on May 26th and again on May 27th. Both shows went on sale the same day. Both shows sold out the same day in the same city. And it's noted in the newsletters at the time. This might be the first time that's ever happened. Now, I know this would happen much more frequently when we started to make a weekend of it, where we might have like a SmackDown and an NXT pay-per-view and a WWE pay-per-view and a Raw. I mean, it would be back to back to back. I get that. But back in '04, that had to be kind of cool. Hey, we're in the same town back to back days and it's sold out both days. That's new territory for WWE, is it not?
Beautiful luxury. Yeah, it's great because you don't have to, You don't have the added expense and added wear and tear of having to tear down and then move on to another town and then set up in that town and tear down. You set up, you leave it, and you go. So that's a plus anytime that you can pull that off. Saves money, saves time.
There's, of course, a lot of reporting at the time about what is Brock Lesnar going to do. And there's a lot made about Brock Lesnar's lifestyle. It's noted that when he was in the WWE, allegedly, according to an article written by Mark Craig in the Minneapolis Star Tribune, that he was making $9 million a year. Respectfully, there was roughly 0% chance of that. Would that be fair to say, Bruce?
That would be very fair to say.
Why do you think that's become? Because I mean, you and I have talked about this off air, and I know we don't usually talk about stuff like this on the podcast, but why do you think it's gotten out of hand where you're seeing, oh, so-and-so's making $15 million a year, and oh, this person just signed as a writer $1 million a year, and it's like, wait, what? Like, how has this just got? And don't get me wrong, I think it's great that folks are making more money and there's more money to be made in wrestling and blah blah blah. Roll Tide on all that, but some of this stuff that I see online, I just shake my head like that ain't even close to true. Where's this coming from?
Wait a minute, you're saying that Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller are lying?
No, I've never
because
seen
they
this.
do. Because they do. I would like to all answer that for you. Because they do. That's what they do. They lie. They make up shit and they lie, or they hear something from someone who's just seen if he can get it printed or get it retold by Dave, and they lie. And it's just inaccuracy, and it's someone who doesn't know the business and isn't a part of the business, not a fan of the product. Okay. It's one thing to be a fan of the product and you want to talk about the product and what you like and what you don't like. But when you start talking about actual business things that you don't know anything about, that's what you got. You got a lot of people go, oh God, oh my God, so-and-so's a billionaire, so they must be overspending for everything that they're doing. You know, only one that knows is that billionaire and their accountant.
Or that $1 billion corporation, whoever we may or may not be talking about. I just think it's fascinating to me that, I mean, this isn't something that's written in the Observer or the Torch. This is in the Minneapolis paper.
Doesn't make it any better.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's like, but I know that based on your little rant at the beginning about Wade and Dave.
Well, who do you think his sources were? His sources were probably Dave Meltzer.